kind of a different position for you. You're usually on this side of the mic.
Yeah. I've done this side like 3 times only
Mm-hmm.
compared to maybe like 50 times, on the other side. So, yeah,
Does it feel strange when you're on that side?
I think so. Because I think it's about not knowing what comes next
Mm.
versus I'm always anticipating and I'm directing my episodes normally and I'm leading the conversation. So it's good. I mean, it's a good challenge for me.
Well, and we're also going to be talking about some heavy things too,
Yeah.
some very serious things. So that's always a little unnerving,
Mhm.
but I think we're comfortable enough to navigate our way through those things.
Yeah.
You are first generation born in America, which means your parents were the ones to immigrate over here. So let's talk about that a little bit.
I will start by saying that I have what we might call multi ethnic Chinese identity. And so, not a lot of people know about how many different ethnic groups there are inside of mainland China or in the Chinese diaspora overall. And so, that's a big part of my backstory and my family's backstory because when we think Chinese, we often think like a stereotypical type of person, right? And you often, if you hear Chinese and immigrant and recent, you might think that a family immigrated together from mainland China, which
Right.
did not happen for my family. So, um, my parents actually met here in the States. They did not know each other before. Reason being, my father is from Singapore and my mother is from mainland China. I'll get into that whole story later. But I didn't grow up with my father. So when I was really, really young, my mother's side of the family who raised me basically was just like, to simplify things, like you are mainland Chinese, you are like as if there's only one. There are 56 ethnic groups, but like that's fine. Recognize there's many more. But yeah, they were basically like, you speak Mandarin because you'll be raised this way. You are Chinese and you were born in the States, therefore you're Chinese American. And it's very, for them, it was very, very easy to say things like that because it's like, well, they didn't have to go through this. And so
Right.
for them, they were born in China, they were raised in China, they lived in China, they worked in China, and then they left China. And so then they were like, yeah. So like we made you, well, or like with my father's participation, I suppose, right? Made you in the States, and therefore you have this, I don't know what to call it. They didn't really have a word, but they were like, you are a different version of Chinese person than someone born in China. However, like you're still Chinese. So that was never a question for me of like, what type of Asian are you? But I will say, because my father wasn't in the picture and I didn't have a lot of connection with him, I didn't know how to talk about my Singaporean side.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
interesting,
Yeah.
especially given the Singaporean history.
Hmm.
Like, it's a very young country. People today
Yeah.
still have trouble recognizing it
Yeah.
as an independent country from China,
Well, I mean,
as we saw with
yeah.
with
Yeah.
TikTok.
Yeah. Senator, I'm Singaporean. Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
We all saw it, right?
Yeah.
So, with your family dynamics, then did that mean that you were just primarily raised as Chinese?
Yeah. And so this is after the era of Mao in China. So when my mother came, because it wasn't parents, it was mother. And then
Mhm.
afterwards, around the time I was born, my grandparents had already like come like a year before. And then basically part of that was to leave mainland China for religious and faith related reasons because my family is deeply, deeply, devoutly Christian. And under the government at the time, and still today, you cannot have freedom of religion as we can in North America. And so there was a lot of this. I mean, my family's that side of the history is rife with like religious persecution and things like that. And so it was always this idea of like, if we can explore other options, we will. So she ended up, in the States. She came in like the late 70s. She basically had to figure her way out here. It was extremely complicated because she didn't speak any English. She wasn't educated because during the Cultural Revolution, she was essentially like taken from normal life, as everyone was, in the country, to go work in labor camps set up in like rural areas by
Mhm.
Mao. So you imagine you're like, I don't know, like an 8 to 10 year old child, and you just go to work the fields like that. That was her education. So
Right.
she arrives in America not knowing anything, not knowing like, and it's already hard enough to be in a new country. I've moved a couple different countries now, and it's like there's always a learning curve. But like these days, we have technology. I speak 3 languages. You know what I mean? Like I literally have tools that she didn't have, and she didn't have an education to back it up. So it was really, really difficult. My family, from that side, it's like as poor as it gets, like, like village poor, like my great grandfather herded sheep. Like, so like I always say borders are stupid because borders are they were always in flux, and I don't understand. It's like really you don't have to go very far to see how these lines changed over time. And it's not only
Mhm.
by like, oh, there was a sea. Like why, especially if we talk about like empires and colonies and things like that, like clearly it doesn't matter if there is a sea or like a billion other countries in the middle. If you want a place, you take it, right? That's how it worked before, where like you
Right.
fight until you can, yeah, steal it. And so I feel like when we do talk about these divisions based on nationality, it's really interesting for me because I understand divisions based on ethnicity in a way that is linked to ancestry and genetics. I do not understand as much. I understand for cultural reasons and for maybe value systems and behaviors or habits, why we might divide based on nationality, right? Because, like being raised in the States is different than Canada, even, right? And like
Right.
we're right next door. Being raised in different parts of different states will be different, right?
Absolutely.
Um, However, yeah, when it comes to like, yeah, I'm Chinese, I'm Korean, I'm Japanese, I understand. Oh, believe me, I understand the history like way more than I think a lot of people actually do, right? Because my family had to live through things.
Mhm.
However, does that make me inherently hate someone else or like I don't know. I feel like we don't yet know the difference yet sometimes as the subsequent generations of Asian Americans who did not live through those things. Like, I know it's in our histories. I know it's in our bloodlines. My great grandfather was assassinated by the Japanese, like literal assassination. We're not talking like by accident, like literally as a targeted hit. So, but was not raised actually even by my grandfather, who was, his son, to hate Japanese people
Right.
because that is a whole other level of, I think, dehumanization that no one deserves.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that a little bit too in the past of how the Asian American diaspora will still carry some of that
Yeah.
over here.
Yeah.
And that is what makes us so siloed and like
Yeah.
fractured in our efforts to do anything in the community to
Yeah.
benefit Asians.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's one of the things that I do love about our work together is that the fact that you are Chinese and the fact that I'm even a Korean adoptee, I think gives an example and shows how like it doesn't matter what type of Asian, we're Asian.
Yeah.
Because in America, we're all Chinese.
I know.
Yeah, but that's what I love is that we it's never about that. We're able to show representation for our type of Asian,
Yeah.
but also work together for the collective.
Hmm.
Was there any kind of assimilation that you had to face?
So my mother, when she came, there was no choice but to assimilate. So get rid of your foreign accent as soon as possible on English. I don't know, reject everything about your cultural heritage and identity. Like you're American now. Your goal is to be as American as possible, and so
Right.
like show that by like eating the right things and saying the right things and doing the right things, whatever that means. To be honest, because like once she met my father, especially, they moved a couple of different places in the States, and so every place they went has a different microculture, right? And so
Mhm.
you basically have to adapt every single time. And so I think by the time I have a sister also, and by the time she came along and by the time I came along later, I feel like the at least in our area, I cannot speak for the entire country because we're just like, I don't think people know how large of a country we are. And I know we understand the concept, even as Americans, about states. but I don't think we really truly understand like the size and magnitude, first of all, because the maps are wrong. Um, and so when you look at Europe and all the countries look huge, that's not how it works. But I also think that people don't give enough credit to the fact that our local geographical location literally will shape how we are, how we see our Asianness, right? Because
Right.
if you are in a community of other people who not only look like you but come from that same sort of historical um, event that pushed everyone here, right? So like I don't know, let's say it's whatever war, whatever revolution, whatever trauma thing that happened, right? And then everyone ends up and settles in the same place, and you're like, oh hey, like you're also here, great. And so then you can kind of create your own mini world. I feel like, you can create your own like Chinatown or Koreatown or something.
Yeah.
But I didn't have that. I'm from the DC metro area, which is incredibly diverse and incredibly immigrant heavy, but like immigrants from everywhere
Right.
because, I my school, I think, all my schools I went to. I never went to a school where I was like, wow, there's a majority of like whatever type of person. It's like, I don't know, like I remember learning geography and just being like, oh cool, like 17 of like in a class of like 20 kids, like 17 countries would be represented or something, you know? And
That's
so
really
like yeah,
nice.
it was super diverse to the point where I think if I only did um, like regular public school, or like I don't know, whatever school, I wouldn't have maybe gone through some of the things that I did. A lot of my personal stories of racism, prejudice, discrimination as a victim of those things came through my gymnastics training.
Mm.
Because a gym is a very isolated environment, and if you know anything about USA Gymnastics, it's a problematic organization, and so I feel like, and also because I trained so many hours, I was there like 40 hours a week, in my, in the gym training, not including all the other stuff that we had to do, not including competitions and travel and all that stuff. So I actually think that's maybe the contrast for me personally, being like, it's like, what are the variables, right? I'm first gen born, aka second gen, because I'm like, but the first generation that is born in the States, right? For my
Right.
family, from the DC metro area, a lot of other people who are have a similar, I guess, profile may not have gone through some of the things I went through, again because I was also an athlete. I also was, in also had to go to like an insane church for a very long time, and like there are all these other factors that play a role. So I didn't have to assimilate, but I like the way my mother did, but I did have to, I think, navigate my own series of variables together.
It was more the specific environments that you were placed in rather
Yeah.
than, because it sounds like DC in general, you could be an individual. Everybody was so different, it didn't really matter.
Yeah.
But it was more of like the community that you were kind of in, like
Yeah.
with gymnastics and your
Yeah, the
church.
different spaces that you had to
Hmm.
go in and out of. And I think that's also why maybe it matters a lot to me, especially in the work like we're doing together and the work I'm doing now. It matters a lot that we look at these individual factors, because I don't think it's sufficient to say, great, we're Chinese American, I'm Chinese American, right? Oh, okay. So like your life must have been like this. Like you don't know at all what my life must have been like,
Right.
not based on my ethnic profile, at least.
Hmm.
You can be like, oh, you probably experienced racism. Yeah, because like we all do, like
Right.
we all do as Asians. Like that doesn't. It happens in Asia also. It's just it's a different flavor. It's a different. It's not when we talk race in the West, we are talking like post-colonial stuff, right? And so
Asian racism is yeah, it's more, like you said, it's more kind of colonialism, colorism, classism side of
it's
things.
like imperialism.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's a weird flavor of it,
yeah,
for sure. It's one that growing up I often faced
mm,
because I was an adoptee raised by white people.
mm,
So culturally, I was not really, it's, I don't feel like people care as much now, but when I was growing
yeah,
up, I was a banana,
yeah,
which means you're white on the inside, you're yellow on the outside.
yeah,
And that's a really weird thing, I think, a
yeah,
concept, right? But now I can see a difference just from 15,
Oh
20
yeah.
years
Oh my
ago.
God, absolutely.
Is a huge
Yeah.
difference. Yeah.
Like what is this whole like I was traveling, I mean even the other day, it really was the other day, but I was in London, right? And so basically table of kids talking about how they wanted to learn Korean because K-pop. And I was like,
Yeah.
what? Like, and there I was, like, basically being like, oh, thank God we have Jackie Chan. Like, at some point,
Right.
just being like, oh, okay,
Oh,
representation
Michelle
in this. Yeah,
Kwan,
Michelle Kwan.
Mulan.
Yeah,
We
I
have an
know.
Asian
Oh
Disney
my God,
princess.
how I identified with Mulan. Like, you have no idea. After Mulan came out, I was like, oh my God, that's my destiny. Like, that is
Oh
because that was the
God.
first and only time, right? At the time. Before that,
Yeah.
I guess I saw Pocahontas. So I was like, oh, kind of gets
Oh yeah.
close.
It's
Kind of like,
close.
yeah, she looks closer to me. And I didn't know I was thinking this, but I was like, yeah, Native Americans and Asian Americans probably, we look kind of similar. Maybe
Oh, listen.
through Alaska.
I
Like,
I clung to
yeah,
that theory of
yeah,
like what was it, the Bering Strait, where
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Koreans
Yeah,
they followed their food into the Americas and
yeah,
became Native Americans.
yeah,
I clung to that for identity.
yep,
Not because I was trying to like take Native American identity. I'm not
yeah,
trying to say that, but like there was no Asian representation
yeah,
at the time. And the closest thing that was anything that looked anything like us at the time
yeah,
was Native American. I
yeah.
guess Selena, because she was pretty popular when I was
Also,
young.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I so that's also where we have a lot of stories of people who identify or like have ancestry as Hispanic Latino, right? And basically they like I've had so many stories of how there's been confusion on both sides, like people who are like, yeah, I'm like full on from Mexico, but like people are like, are you Vietnamese? We are Asian Americans and we are required in these identities, I feel, to not only know about US history and about
Right.
us in the US, but we're also required to know a huge segment of the world that our society will not naturally teach us. We have to go find this information on our own.
The Asian experience, not just the Asian American experience, but just it's vast.
Yeah.
But yeah, it covers a lot of territory. So there are many, many different identities, cultures, heritages to acknowledge. But that's also why I tend to make the joke of in America, we're all Chinese.
And I'm going to touch on that just a tiny bit, right?
Yeah.
Because I am Chinese, right? And so, and again, I have this identity and ancestry that is between mainland and Singaporean Chinese, which is not the same.
Hmm.
And so a lot of people are like, well, you're just Chinese at the end of the day. Okay, but that's because China itself, like under dynasties and whatnot, like, I mean, how many wars were fought to like claim the land that is China today? But also, we're talking about people who had settled in other countries like Singapore, like Malaysia, like, even in Southeast Asia and across Asia, who are ethnically, again, by ancestry Chinese, but are like generations removed from the mainland.
Right.
And also, my father's side is a totally different ethnic group, not by being Singaporean, but like literally where they were originally in China was a whole different group. So again, they look totally different, height, everything is different, right? Um, and so I feel like when people make that remark on like, oh, you're probably Chinese, I agree that, well, so first of all, for me, like, oh, good job, you're right. Like, probability is what, like one in how many, right? Depending on your area. There's a lot of Chinese people in like my local area. So, like,
Fair.
good job, right? But like, you move to a different area, you'll be wrong. It's like, oh, you're supposed to say Korean or like, so you have to change like your, I guess, what bias you're using. But it's also really weird, I think, when we allow these things to continue. I think I do recognize that a lot of people don't make distinctions between Asian groups.
Hmm.
And that's why people, let's say if I weren't Chinese and I was Korean or something, right? I might be like, no, I'm Korean. Like, I can't believe you think I'm like, Chinese. And oh my God, like all Chinese people, like, they don't look like me, etc. I think we have to be careful because no, like what does looking Chinese even look like, right?
Fair.
And I think I hear also in from Chinese people about Korean people, about Japanese people, about what, and it's like you don't even know truly what someone is or where they're from or where their families are from. You're basing it off of your own assumptions about the stereotypical image of what someone represents. So I am often told by Chinese people that I do not look Chinese because I do not look mainland Chinese, which is true because half of my DNA came from Southeast Asia. You know what I mean? Or sorry, it came from South China and Southeast Asia because my father's side also has other roots in the region. So yeah, it's very very complicated. I think when you look at what are we allowing, like which models are we inadvertently perpetuating, even as Asian Americans. And I think it's not only, let's say, the white American people who are projecting this monolith Asian representation via Chinese people image. I think it's also what we do to each other. You know, I think that we literally will be like, oh, that's definitely a Korean person. I remember I had a friend who one time she heard someone speaking Japanese and she's like, no, that was definitely Korean. And I was like, no, that was definitely Japanese. Like, and she's like, no, but he's Korean. I was like, no, he's Japanese. Like, I don't, like, again, so we always touch on a lot of
Yeah.
things when we talk, but like I really think we just need to pull back a lot more and look at like how are we actually categorizing people and why, and where did this come from? Where did these beliefs come from? Where did these models come from? Is there actually, like, there's 1.5 billion people, I don't know the latest stat, but who are living in mainland China right now. 1.5 billion people we think all match the stereotype.
Profile.
Yeah. And how many people in the diaspora overall? It's crazy.
It's so interesting because you have pretty much the opposite experience of that embodiment of you're all Chinese or you're not Chinese.
Mm.
Because on my side of that statement is that no one ever considered, or they just didn't acknowledge other Asian ethnicities, kind of like how some people think Paris is France,
Oh yeah.
right? But for you, it was more of you actually were Chinese,
Mm.
but we're told that you weren't fitting the profile.
Yeah, yeah. So like in the US being told I'm Chinese, I'm like, well, that's not surprising because you think like every Asian is Chinese.
Hmm.
But then people think that because I am Chinese, and this is also the stereotype in the States, that when I go to China, everyone's gonna be like, oh, you're one of us. And I actually, that's why I put myself through a study abroad when I was in college to make sure I could test this for myself.
Hmm.
So I went to Beijing, which is the capital, the modern capital of China, and also the, like, it's known to be, you know, one of the largest cities with how many people. I think when I was living there was like 23 million people living in the city.
Wow.
So a lot of people from all over the country, but a lot of foreign people as well. You know, it's capital cities are always like this. And I wanted to test if people could tell where I was from because I am fluent in Mandarin, and I mean I speak well, but all of the feedback I got in all the places I went was basically like, you're different. Like, why are you different? Like, I can't tell. Are you
Hmm.
Korean? Like,
Are you Korean?
literally, yeah. Or they'd be like, are you from one of the provinces out in the west?
Yeah.
Because like, you know, it's fairly east, right? It's north, but also more towards the east. And so yeah, it's like it's very interesting because we might think it's kind of like when you're in the US and you hear someone's US accent not being familiar to you and you're like, are you from Wyoming? Like, are you, like, you know, like you
I
just guess.
I may know a little bit
You
of
might
what
know
that
a little bit.
is like, just
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah.
Uh, you're right though, because I experienced that a lot with other Asians. First the accent, but then it was like, okay, but what kind of Asian are you?
Mm.
And I remember some of my other friends that they were white friends. They would be like, do you not get as uncomfortable? And I was like, it's different with Asians.
It's different with
There's a different
Asians. Yeah.
motivation.
Yeah. It's also about language a lot of times. Like
That
if,
too.
yeah, so like I was sorry, go
Yeah.
ahead. Yeah.
Well, in America, like
Yeah.
connection, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
are we the same kind of Asian?
Yeah.
Because I got Korean discounts in places. Okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't know
Yeah.
nobody, but we were
Yeah.
Korean, so I
Yeah.
got 10% off.
Yeah.
Like, that's a real thing.
Yeah. Yes. I was asked in H Mart the other day by this, like, you know, auntie, if I was Korean, which again, I had then also Korean friends in college who were like, you definitely don't look Korean. And so like they were like straight up from Korea. And I was like, okay, well, I really don't need to be. Again, like I like go around places apparently needing to state how much I don't need and want, or not even want. It's like want it. But just my are you Korean actually comes up a lot in my life somehow. And so anyways, I am in H Mart and she asks me, but the reason that she asks me is because she wanted to know which language that she was gonna use to ask me about my shoes because she really liked my shoes. And so when I was like, oh no, I'm not, I'm sorry, she then just continued in English and she's
Yeah.
like, oh, I really like your shoes and I really like your outfit. Where is this from? And I just, talked to her. I was like, oh my God, DSW 20, $29. Like got it, the summer clearance sale, whatever. Um, which I was like, damn, did I just show I was really Chinese by saying, by talking about the price of things?
I
I
do
was like,
that too, and I
yeah,
don't even. But I want to
yeah.
share the good
I know.
deal.
I
I'm
want to
like,
be like, this is how you like, you have to do this and you have to stack the
yeah,
coupon and like, yeah. But yeah, it's very interesting that like I don't think that there are very invasive Asian people for sure, but it's this ability to check someone more easily. So, if let's say, I don't know, whoever, usually an auntie, because it's like a generational thing also, is prying a little too much into my ancestry, I will tell them, even if they're Chinese, I will just tell them, like, this is too much information. Like,
mm,
we just met, like, you, no, like, I don't
I
need
don't know
to,
you.
yeah, like, I really, truly, like, let's take it a step, versus, yeah, it's different because the motivation is different. And I think that's what we need to remember, that it's not exactly about the question, like the question, where are you from, right?
Hmm.
Triggers a lot of people, but it's the context. There's nothing wrong with like the literal words. It's English, it's
Right.
a sentence, right? They're words that are strung together. It's more about like the intention is not asking you which country you're from. The intention is asking you what type of Asian you are,
Hmm.
which is not the question that's being asked. Like, it's not the words being used. And it's because people know it's taboo to say what type, April, what type of Asian are you? Or what are you?
Yeah.
Right? If someone tells you, like, or asks you, what are you? They know that that's going to elicit a certain type of reaction. So they try to hide it inside of the where are you from. And when you say West Virginia,
Oh, people still ask me, "What
and
are
that's
you?"
what I mean.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
it doesn't
I
stop a
mean, they
lot of
will, yeah,
people.
it will, yeah. But the ones who like make an effort, right?
Right.
They're trying to hide it inside
They are
of,
trying. Yeah.
yeah,
The people still want to know
yeah,
that they will. That's why a lot of times I just kind of give it unsolicited to make everybody just get past it, because you can sometimes see it behind their eyes, especially with my accent.
yeah.
It's like, okay, you can't focus on anything right now. And you can almost see it on the tip of their tongue. And they might start to ask a fluffer question, so to speak. So you're, where's that accent
Hmm.
from?
Yeah.
That's the easiest one,
That's what French
right?
people ask me. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, yeah, I was raised by white people. I was adopted from Korea. I was raised in Southern West Virginia, and now I'm here. Moving on.
Yeah, I don't actually answer. I used to.
Hmm.
I will now go through an exercise with whoever is asking because, again, motivation. Why is someone asking me if it's not at all relevant to the conversation that we're having and it's just their curiosity that needs to be satisfied? I exercise, I don't know, it's not even restraint. There's no part of me that feels like I need to know someone's ethnicity to know how to have a conversation with them.
Hmm.
So to me, this indicates that for some reason, you need to put me in some sort of category that fits in your head, which even if my answer, like even if I give the answer that you're looking for, right? Which is like, are you Chinese, Korean, or whatever, what are you?
Right.
Um, it's not going to matter what I am because you're just still trying to fit that in the box you've already created in
Hmm.
your mind, right? So like Korean looks like this, Chinese looks like that. So if I hear, okay, let's just pretend that I answered, because this is what used to happen when I was a teenager and earlier. So someone's like, oh, where are you from? And I knew that that question was asking me about my ethnicity. And so I would be like, oh, I'm Chinese. That is no longer, I think, an appropriate way for us to be answering the question, especially if we didn't literally come from a different country.
Mm.
This is also a question of how many generations does it take to stop being from that country,
Ooh. Yeah,
which
that's a
is,
good question.
this came up from Raven Simone brought it up, but I also brought it up like, well, privately. I am not a celebrity, but like I've brought it up separately because there have been so many generations of Chinese Americans. Let's say I'll speak for like my people, right, in the country, and yet how would you tell how many generations somebody was just looking at them, right? And I really have to thank also, I think, my husband, who is constantly reminding me to just be like, no, like it's just not okay, right? If somebody
Hmm.
is profiling you based on that, like because he is not Asian, and he is a white European man, and so like from Europe, not not the American version. But he's like, yeah, no, because you could be like let's just call it, it's not possible, but like let's say like 10 generations or something, before, and they'll still see your face and they'll still be like, oh, but you look Chinese. And then when you're like, I am Chinese,
Yeah.
they'll be like, oh, okay, so like you like this food and you do this stuff with your family. What if you don't speak the language? What if you don't, you know what I mean? Like, what
Yeah.
if all these things that don't match you? And no, I just feel there's a lot of there are problems with us just this is a personal opinion, okay, so if you don't agree, like don't come for me, like I literally don't care what you do with your lives, but like I personally no longer answer in that way. I will ask the person, like I'll be like, I'm from Maryland, right, or like DC, because I'm from like just outside DC. If they're asking and then they go, oh no, like you didn't understand my question, like,
Mm,
oh sweetie, you didn't understand my question, like let me ask it again. And I'm like, your question, ask me where I'm from, as if to insinuate that I can't be from here.
right.
And then I'll just be like, I'm from here. Would you like to be more specific? Like, would you like to? And so I'll be like, is there another reason, that we need to be having this conversation, or like what is the relevance to the topic that we're probably discussing at the time? Oh no, it's just like, you look and it's like they want to be like, oh, but you look Asian, I just don't know which one you are, and so then I can't say, like, so then like it's my internal frustration and not knowing how to carry a conversation with an ambiguous Asian looking person. It's like, again, the relevance is not there. We're not talking about, like, do you want to tell me about the new Korean supermarket that opened in your, and you want to know if I'm Korean so that you can talk to me about it? And what would that change? What if I was Korean but I didn't know anything about the supermarket? Do you see my point? Like, I'm tired of us actually just playing the game that we are not like required to play. Actually, I think it's a choice if we want to.
It's fair. You take it as like justifying your existence almost.
I mean, if
I'm
you want to
just
know my
here. I'm a
ethnicity, then
person.
ask me.
Right.
Go ahead and try, like, again, but also in the rules of common courtesy, which I use to communicate with people,
Right.
which I'm not being given clearly. If someone wants to come up to me and be like, what it's because we don't ask what race are you. We would, the right question, I guess, in terms of formulation would be, what ethnicity are you?
Mm-hmm.
But we are like, oh no, that's too personal. So again, it's the hiding it inside of a different construction, but looking for the same outcome, that I just feel is, I would never think to ask that to anyone who is from any place, actually.
Well, and that's another thing too. Do you think it's also partly because it is kind of a running joke in the Asian community that that's a question that we hear specifically? You don't go up to most other people, at least in America, and different ethnic groups, and ask, "Where are you from?"
Yeah.
No, but like,
Where are
where are you
you really
from?
from? Yeah.
It does tend to be
Yeah.
more common in.
Because it's perpetual foreigner, right? It's like with the fact that we have Asian features, because this happens with mixed race kids also, right?
Mhm.
You look not totally whatever. Therefore, questions of what are you, questions of where are you actually from? No, I'm actually from here.
Mhm.
And again,